Hey movie fans, so I just saw Marvel's The Thunderbolts. Now much has been made about the MCU post Endgame. It's been a very mixed bag. You've got some great things like Shang-Chi or Spider-Man No Way Home, which I still love to this day. Then you got other stuff like Thor Love and Thunder, which is my least favorite Marvel movie in the entire MCU, I think. And when they announced The Thunderbolts, I, like a lot of other fans, were going, why this? This just felt like an odd choice. It kind of felt like Marvel's answer to that other DC movie, or that other DC movie that may or may not have been connected. It's a weird thing, but The Thunderbolts is here, and I was kind of getting excited for it. The trailers seemed really promising. It was getting some good early word of mouth, but was it actually going to deliver? Because as we know with the MCU lately, you never know what you're gonna get. But thankfully, The Thunderbolts is such a refreshing breath of fresh air that I was like, wow, Marvel, you haven't fully lost it. Just go back to this, please. Was this so hard? So let's break this all down. The goods, the bads, and everything in between without giving too much into spoilers, because there's some big reveals, but by and large, the wonderful thing about this movie is it's a standalone movie. They put the focus first and foremost back on the characters. You know, that thing that they used to do. Let's focus on the characters. Let's get you to be invested in their story, their emotional journey that we're going to take them and you as an audience along on, and hopefully by the end of it, you care more about these characters than you did at the start of it. And that was absolutely the case here. The big star of this is Yelena. Absolutely knocked it out of the park by Florence Pugh. I have been a fan of Florence Pugh for a while now, ever since Fighting with My Family. That's a great underrated movie that y'all should check out. But I was really impressed with her this time around. It seems like it's going to be an ensemble movie, but for the most part, this is really a Yelena movie more than anything. She is a flawed and broken character leading flawed and broken characters. That's kind of the binding theme that holds everybody together in this movie is they're all rejects. They're all terrible people. They're all losers. But that's what works about this movie. They're not likable. They're all kind of a-holes. And Yelena leads the pack in that. But thankfully, it's not just Florence Pugh really carrying this movie. It's the rest of the cast. But specifically, Lewis Pullman as quote-unquote Bob really stood out to me. There's a lot that's asked of him. He's the X factor in this entire movie. You don't really know too much about him if you haven't read the comics. The trailers kind of hint at some stuff, but they've really been playing up the whole, well, who is Bob? And Bob is kind of the comedic character. He's the X factor. He's the unknown in this whole equation that is the Thunderbolts. And I really like what he brought to the table, both the funny stuff, the quirky character, but also the very emotionally raw moments. There's stuff at the core of him that really you latch onto, especially in the final third, that I'm going, okay, I'm invested in you. I care about you now. I understand and empathize with you, but I will still laugh along with you like a friend. And that's the great thing about this movie is it's funny, but it knows when not to be funny. It doesn't have that usual Marvel syndrome of, oh, we got to make a joke at any time. We have to make light of every situation. I like to laugh. I like a good comedy, but sometimes let the moment hit. You don't have to make a joke about every single thing. And sometimes, more often than not, the MCU is very guilty of that. But thankfully, the raw emotional moments that happen in this are let be that for the most part. They just let the seriousness of the moment happen. And one of the big positives of this movie is there are those serious moments. This movie tackles some very heavy subject matter, but does so in a very respectful way. I mentioned my sheer hatred for Thor Love and Thunder. There's many reasons why I hate that movie, but one of the big reasons I dislike it so much was its just blasé, don't really care attitude about Jane Foster's storyline, of the fact that she is literally dying and we're making fun of that fact. They do not treat her seriously. They don't treat her ailment seriously. They treat that as a joke. Whereas this is very much about trauma and mental health and PTSD, and that is treated as seriously as it should be. It's not played off for laughs. These are broken and damaged characters that are allowed to be broken and damaged, but are working on improving themselves. They're still terrible, terrible people, and you do not want them as your good guys. But they're working on it. Lewis Pullman and Florence Pugh really carry the movie, but the rest of the cast is still solid. Red Guardian, great. David Harbour, I love him to death. Sebastian Stan as Bucky, great. Now, getting into the negatives, though, as much as I like that cast, there's certain ones that I wish I could have gotten a little bit more of, specifically Red Guardian and Bucky. Like, they're both great, but this is pretty much a Yelena movie, Yelena and Friends. And in that regard, it's great. But in any ensemble project, there's going to be a disproportionate amount of screen time per character. You just kind of have that give and take. And some characters just don't get as much development as others. And it's not necessarily a bad thing, but there's certain characters that I just would have liked to have seen a little bit more screen time of, if that makes sense. And without delving too much into specifics, there's one character in particular that absolutely was wasted. Like, wow, why are you in this movie at all? You were actually an actual waste of time here. You did not need to be here. I will say my big negative, though, and this is really picking nits here, it's kind of the villain and kind of not. You have Julie Louis-Dreyfus's character's back as Day Fontaine, whatever her name is. I forget the whole long thing. I have never really cared for her character. She has been in multiple MCU projects now, and it's not so much just like, wow, you do your job so well that I hate you. Like a Voldemort, she's more of an Umbridge than a Voldemort, and she never has really fit. She always seems a little comically over-the-top, goofy villain. And I've just never really bought into her as a villainous foil for any heroic character in the MCU. She's more of a grating character than an actual evil character. And maybe that's just how the character is drawn up, but yeah, I have a hard time anytime she's on screen. I'm just like, I don't care about whatever your plan is. You're more obnoxious than anything else. Which leads us to like the whole mystery character, the mystery entity that the Thunderbolts are fighting. It was okay. The actual physical presence of it was okay, but what it represented I thought was really, really cool and really, really well done. And for me personally, I actually really liked the final fight, but I will give you the mild heads up that it is unconventional. So if you're going in expecting a traditional superhero movie, the final fight may be a little different than what you're expecting, and that might not work for some people. It really, really worked for me, but just be aware that this movie tries some different things, but for the most part, those things really worked for me. Overall, I really, really like this movie, and the job of any movie should get you to care about the characters more so at the end of it than you do at the beginning. And that was absolutely the case here. I love almost everyone involved with this cast. Granted, like I said, some people get more screen time than others, so I care more than some others. But also, I care more about the MCU after watching this than I did before. Again, not going into too much spoilers here, but now I feel like, okay, I get somewhat of a clearer picture of where we're going, and I'm more excited about the future than I was a few movies ago, or even at the beginning of this movie. I have a clear roadmap of where we're going. There's still a whole lot of questions I have about the future of the MCU, but I thought this was a absolutely step in the right direction. This felt like what MCU movies used to be, of let's just focus on good characters. The action will come later, but it all services the story itself, not just setting up future things. Yes, there's one or two things that set up future events, but by and large, there's not a whole lot of homework that's required for this movie. They fill you in pretty quick. Just watch and enjoy, and they tackle some really good stuff that I think was a breath of fresh air overall for the comic book world, and I'm happy this movie exists. But what do you guys think? Have you seen The Thunderbolts? Are you at all curious about it? Have you seen it? Are you going to see it? Are you going to skip it? Whatever your thoughts, let me know down in the comments below, as I hear from you guys. And as always, if you like what you see and want to see more, subscribe to the channel. And as always, stay sharp, movie guys and gals.